G'day, everyone. Welcome to another Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's original and the best podcast dedicated to everything Newcastle United. Tonight, we have a Bournemouth preview, and we're joined by a very special guest. Before we get him, I'll introduce Dimi, also in Melbourne. How are you, mate?
Very good, mate. As you can tell, I've got some paraphernalia on this evening. Looking forward to the Super Bowl on Monday, but we're not here to talk about the Super Bowl. We're here to talk about the Geordies, and there's, I think, 19 days away from a cup final, and I've already planned my 2 days before the cup final, and I've already put it in our calendar, like you see in Google. It's start drinking from about midnight before. So let's get going.
Yeah. All right. Just before we get to our guest, anyone who's watching or listening really helps us a lot on the YouTube algorithm and gets us out there a little bit more. If you're listening, give us a review on your platform that you listen to us. But without further ado, tonight's guest is a writer for Code Sports. You can listen to him on 1170 SEN in Sydney or live and crystal clear on the SEN app, as they like to say, on the station. Or you can watch and listen to him right now on our podcast. Second time on, so officially a friend of the pod, Mr. Adam Peacock. How are you, mate?
Good. Yourselves?
Very well, very well.
Fantastic.
It's excited to have you on, and like we've been saying for a couple of weeks, or probably nearly a season now, it's an exciting time to be a Newcastle supporter, and things are a little bit better than what they were from the last time you were on. So,
Yeah.
there's been a bit to get through. A little bit we want to get through with you. I was thinking we'll start with you back in October. You, along with Dimi, were lucky enough to go to a game this year. Now, unfortunately, you were due to go with your old man and he got a bit crook. So, your son, Noah, actually filled in and got to take the trip of a lifetime over. How was that?
Mate, it was awesome. Yeah. So the day Noah finished his HSC, October 25, we got on a plane that night, and you had to wait to plan because of the Premier League fixtures coming out. So we did a little tour of England. We ended up doing in 13 days. We went to 10 games, which was pretty cool. Across all levels of the pyramid. We went up to Scotland to see Celtic play. Went to a Europa League game with Manchester United. Went to a couple of Champions League games. Went to a Championship game with Hull and Middlesbrough. So wherever there was a game on, we drove to. But the three games involving Newcastle we got to were an under-21s at St James's against Sunderland under-21s. So we got to see a derby. That's the only derby we get at the moment, given how well they're going.
Yeah.
And two Premier League games involving Newcastle, the Villa thumping at home and then away at St Mary's against Southampton. So 8-1 aggregate over those two games that we saw in the Premier League. And, man, those two atmospheres just before the World Cup, obviously. So that's when I reckon we were at our peak, absolute peak this season. We're absolutely flying and, taking care of business against teams below us on the ladder, which hasn't always been the case, of course.
No, like how? So was that Noah's first time going over?
He went over. The only other time I've been able to go because I've always worked during
same season
on the Premier League, so I never got to go. I went to one game in it was the end of 2005, I reckon it was. An Arsenal game at St James's where we won 1-0. It was actually the night that Arsene Wenger complained that Alan Shearer should have been doing judo. And went to that one, and Noah was 6 months old. So he's actually been over there. He didn't come to the game because he's too young, obviously. Yeah. But, this was the first time that he got to see it in the flesh. And I'm fortunate enough to have been to some high-level football games around the world, including a few World Cups. But this took the cake for pure atmosphere and emotion. It was fantastic, even though it was just a regular Premier League game. If you can call Newcastle games these days regular Premier League games, they're almost like events in themselves.
They are, yeah. There's 19 events, at least 19 events every season. Dimi, unfortunately, you don't have something to compare it to because the Forest game was your first game. So I dare say that you could concur with Adam what the event was like.
Yeah, it was unreal. I mean, I was lucky enough to make a quick jaunt from the honeymoon off to Newcastle to see the game, which was
It'll never
nice.
not be funny.
No, well, I'm just calling a spade a spade. It was all above board, and the missus approved it, so that's all that matters. But no, it was unreal. I mean, the morning of the game, I was that excited. I couldn't sleep. I probably woke up about 6:30, 7 in the morning. I think I flicked on KO. I was maybe watching some footy just to pass the time, and then got to the pub. I reckon about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I thought, oh, I might have an early one just to settle myself in, and just being amongst the faithful and the Geordies all afternoon, really, and then your first time walking to the game and you see the statues, and I was lucky enough to sit in the Gallagher end, and the view was unreal. The atmosphere was unreal. Obviously, it was the first game of the season. There was a unbelievable display by War Flags. It was the feeling that I got when the players walked out. It was unlike, probably the only thing that could compare to it was probably the feeling I had when I went to the 2018 World Cup when Australia came out against France. That was my first World Cup game, and that was sort of hit me in the face thinking, geez, look at this. But the atmosphere wasn't the same that day, obviously, because there wasn't 52,000 screaming Australians watching that game, but there were 50,000 screaming Geordies, and obviously there was a few Forest fans as well up in the gods. But the atmosphere was just something to behold, and I mean the whole day was superb. I mean I love the pre-game, the pub crawls and everything like that. That's all fantastic. But to be in the stadium and to see two good goals, see a victory, just see the whole experience was something that I'll cherish. And as you guys know in the chat, I've been desperate to get over again. Obviously, not easy to make a quick short from Melbourne to Newcastle, but hope sometime soon we can do it again. It's it was unreal.
Yeah, I think it's good to Adam, because that's how, like, taking your kids there, that's how you suck them in for life as well. Like, it's easy to support on this side of the world, and you can watch as much footage as you can, and lucky with Optus, you can throw on some classic games and tell him about all the superstars we used to have to play for us now. But now he's seen in flesh the new superstars. So he's seen the Bruno in the flesh. He's seen Callum Wilson, and he's seen Joel Linton and Sven Botman. So that's the hook, isn't it? Now you like, if there was any doubt, now you've got him for life.
Yeah, he was certainly hooked before, but definitely, like, it's in concrete now, absolutely. And my uncle still lives over there. My dad's brother, he lives just on the edge of the town moor in an apartment there. And funny story, actually, we went and stayed with him for 4 days, and Noah plays a bit of football here, so he was just ticking over there. He went for a couple of runs around the block and things like that, and he pops out one morning, and he walks the first, you walk the first 300, you kind of loosen up. It was pretty cold. So he's walking up, and he just got into a jog when this Range Rover pulled out of this driveway, and he kind of had to stop and bye-bye, and he saw who was in it. It was Eddie. Hey, Eddie, how you going?
No way. That's awesome.
So, yeah, he nearly got run over by Eddie. That would have been something to tell. I wouldn't have had grandkids to tell, but yeah, anyway.
Oh, that's crazy. Now, you also were lucky enough to go to the World Cup in November, and you got to see our new signing, probably not for the first time, but got to see him for Australia for the first time. How was that?
Yeah, the World Cup was awesome. I got to go to 18 matches all up. I went to. So because Doha, like 7 of the 8 grounds were within a 30k radius of each other. It was
perfect.
Like mind blowing. So I took full advantage. Went to at least one game, if not 2 games a day. Went to all the Aussie games. Obviously covered them for Code Sports. Was doing a lot of writing around the whole tournament and on different, like, just as many topics as possible. Didn't take it for granted. Absolutely loved the experience. Interesting cultural experience. But to see Garang there do what he did, it kind of put him on the map. Absolutely. Now that works both ways, because obviously he's got a name for himself, but he's got a reputation now to uphold. And obviously the weekend before last, he had it was a midweek game actually against Rangers. He had a rough initiation where he started. He started in midfield, unfamiliar position, huge game, big opponent. Yeah, got substituted after 45 minutes. So it's a football education for him. I'm surprised he's actually gone up to Scotland to get going. I would have thought Newcastle would have lent him to someone somewhere on the continent where it's not as it's physical, but it's total helter-skelter stuff in Scotland. It's
not fun.
For 95 minutes. So it's a tough initiation for him. So he'll learn a lot in the next 6 months.
Yeah, because I think most sort of Scottish fans over here would either go for Celtic or Rangers. Anyone else is sort of a dime a dozen. And I think most fans probably do tune into the Old Firm Derby over here. If as a neutral, if we're lucky enough, a lot of the time they're on at 9:30 or 10:30 at night with their early kickoffs and stuff like that. So that's all we see is that game and think, oh shit, it's not too bad. But when you sort of dig a little bit deeper and you watch the rest of it, it's not as good. But I think I was happy for him to go over just purely for the first 6 months. Young kid, first time overseas, sort of without his family and support. At least he's got a few Aussies there to help him sort of settle in as well. So I was looking at it more from a personal point of view rather than a development point of view, like a 6th month sort of settle yourself in, come back here in June or July and we'll figure out what we want to do, train for a little bit with the first team.
Edinburgh's not too far as well from Newcastle. So, my geography isn't great, but it's only a couple of hours away. So
nice train ride too.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful train ride.
Amazing.
So that's also an advantage. So I'm sure with some loan deals, I'm sure there's times where Eddie might even ask Hearts if Garang can come train with us for a couple of days if Hearts got some time off or something. So that makes that a bit easier. But Adam's right. It is a brutal league and it can break young players. I mean, we saw what happened to Arzani when he went over early days and he obviously got an unfortunate injury and he didn't kick on after that World Cup as probably we all Aussie fans were hoping. So hopefully the same thing doesn't happen to Garang and he stays fit and gets a lot of minutes. But yeah, it definitely will be an initiation into British football at least.
Yeah, that if that Argentinian goal went in, oh shit, I don't know what would have happened if that went in.
I lost my mind for that.
Yeah, did you have to pay Adam, or did your journal accreditation?
No,
you could just sort of
you get accreditation. So I got accreditation to all these games, and
perfect.
You've got your accreditation lanyard around your neck. Actually, there it is there.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
So you got that basically. And
is that the same photo we used on our tweet?
What you got to do with accreditation is make sure you use a really young-looking photo. No, it's actually not the same one. I'm a bit older here. There's a couple of bags forming under the eyes, and the hair's going backwards. But so you got that, and basically that gives you access to the games, but you have to subscribe to the games, and then you get a little ticket that goes in the back here to slot in each game. They're downstairs. Yeah. But see this, how it's broken and it's snapped. That all happened when Garang missed his chance because I grabbed this, stood up, I swore at the top of my voice, and I ripped it off my neck and threw it on the ground like that. So
we had the same reaction. I was lucky enough to be at Fed Square or Red Square as we were calling it during the World Cup, and if the scenes when we scored the first one were big, but geez, when Garang turned and time stood still, everyone was just waiting for the net to bulge, and somehow Martinez made the save. And if that went in, I don't think Fed Square would be here today. I'm pretty sure it would have it would have gone up in fire. But it was an unbelievable moment. I mean, it's a what if moment. Obviously, Argentina win the World Cup, but it just shows for me in terms of Garang and what Newcastle's going to get with him. The moment, obviously, the save was made. He didn't score, but the composure, at least to bring it down, and he got a decent shot away. It wasn't as if it was a fluffed effort. He still had the composure to be in that right position, and he's always has that something about him that he's always in the right position. He makes good decisions for someone who's so young. So I'm sure he'll learn from that.
Well, there's a game on the weekend against Dundee where Dundee United, I should say, he basically got rid of his opponent by putting him on his back, letting the ball go through and then rolling the opponent twice to open up an acre of space and going through. Like, that's just instinct. Like, he's such a clever player. But I noticed at the end of that game, he was only a substitute who came on for 30 minutes. He could barely run. He was gassed. He was doing a lot of running. He was doing a lot of covering. He was doing his job. But right at the end of the game, when the guy scored from his own half, Garang couldn't pick his feet up. So, yeah, but that's what he's got to get used to. He's like, it's a totally different atmosphere, environment, intensity to here. And it's good for him, sink or swim.
Absolutely. We'll just touch on a bit of news that broke overnight for us. Jimmy, Craig Hope, friend of the pod, also broke the news that the club had purchased back Strawberry Place. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's the land behind the Gallagate end, which was sold off by Mike Ashley, I think, for about £9 million a few years ago, which sort of put a handbrake on any expansion plans to that end of the ground. But they've brought it back now. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, massive. I mean, there was initial talk when they took over about stadium and whether we would need a bigger stadium and to relocate. Obviously, me going there for the first time and knowing about that arena and the location of the stadium is just absolutely perfect. It's in the smack bang in the middle of the city. There's pubs galore around. It's right on top of the hill. It's just perfect location. So I would never want to see another stadium built in Newcastle for Newcastle. If they can expand it now with that purchase of that land, maybe 10,000, an extra 10, 12,000, maybe to 60, 65, that's probably going to be plenty. And I think that's potentially what they'll look to do in terms of, I think the Gallagher end probably can use a bit of a refresh. So that might be what they'll do. But yeah, it is important to keep St James's Park locale, to keep that in the heart of the city, because that's what makes Newcastle what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was talk that they might turn that area into a bit of a fan site for the time being, just before they can finalise plan. I mean, with modern technology, they might find plans that they don't actually need that land and they can upgrade without having to go onto it. But at least they've got it now and it's in their hands. Adam, I'm not sure if you've seen this as well, but there was reports that they are filming an Amazon documentary for the club, an all or nothing type thing, I guess. I don't know about you, but I'm a sucker for these ones. I was sucked into Wrexham. I was sucked into the Sunderland one, but for different reasons, obviously, because I knew the ending for the Sunderland one and it made me really, really happy. Being a sports, not just a journalist, but a sports mad fan like yourself, are you similar ilk? You love them style documentaries?
Yeah, there's a proliferation of them now, so they've got to be done very well. I mean, the Sunderland one was early doors, and I actually do think they've got it in the wrong section of your library. It's like docuseries, drama. It's in docuseries, but it should be in comedy. So that's my point. I love the Arsenal one, actually, because you found out the Arteta methods and the way he does. Like the Mourinho one with Spurs was interesting, but it was the Jose show. You could tell he totally locked off access to all the players. Whether or not that was the blueprint going in, but Pochettino got sacked just after they started filming. So Jose came in and obviously wasn't happy about the fact, but the club was tied to it. So Jose's did what Mourinho does, and he comes in and makes it about himself to protect the players, which is fair enough. That was fascinating for one part, but the Manchester City one, the Leeds one, I got bored with pretty quickly. So hopefully this one shows enough. I think there is enough there with how much the town cares about it. I think visually it's going to be spectacular. Because Newcastle is such an interesting city to look at, with the old industrial area and the new developments that have gone in, and the old traditional areas, and the fact that, as you said, the stadium right smack bang in the middle, and the content's there as well, because Eddie Howe's reinvented himself, obviously, in his time away from Bournemouth, and then come to Newcastle, and he's now one of the best managers in the league. So, there's enough there, definitely, and I'll be hooked to it, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I read that it's only going to be like a 4-parter, so it's not like going to be a long, drawn-out one, which you sort of lose interest. So I think that's pretty important as well, just to keep viewers interested. And I mean, I don't know about you, mate, but I love watching the match cam after a game. They put up 2 or 3 days after a game on the club's YouTube website. It's basically like a 10-minute video with no commentary, really. It's just they've got their camera set up and you can hear the fans, the players in the tunnel and all that. So if that's anything to go by, even that little bit after what game was it? The Leicester game when Dan Burn done that dance, that little 20-second bit of Eddie Howe, just, like the way he talks to his players and stuff like that. I love that stuff, like that sort of coach to player talk. So if there's a little bit of that in there, you got Tyndall going mad as well. He might have an episode to himself, actually.
Best fan in Newcastle, that fella.
Yeah, that's what we call it. We used to have a varnish meter. Just he gets the colder it gets, the darker he gets for some reason. So it should work the opposite. So yeah, I'm actually keen at it. What did you? I think the transfer window was a little bit. Not divisive is probably not the right. It's probably a bit strong, but a few people had different opinions on how that sort of ended for Newcastle. I mean, losing Shelvey and Wood, 2 sort of first team squad players, and only bringing in Aaron Gordon, I guess, as a squad player, which I think a few people thought were maybe a couple of bodies short for the second half of the year. How did you sort of land at the end of the transfer window?
Yeah, I'm worried about the middle of the park, and it was exposed, obviously, without Bruno against West Ham, but that's about the only concern. Look, that they could have brought another couple of bodies in, but do you want to bring him on loan? I was surprised that they let Shelvey go, but obviously they've got to think that they're forward planning. They've got to think about wage bill. They've got to think about financial fair play, especially given what happened this week with the other night.
As we've found out.
So they're really tiptoeing around that, you can tell. And Chris Wood, it was a shame that he had to go. But these are wage considerations, I think, as much as football decisions.
Yeah.
Big calls, but look, I think with Gordon coming in, it's a little bit of the first sign that Eddie and the coaching staff realise that they've got to evolve the team. We are relentless. We are intensity through the roof. We not batter teams into submission the traditional way of just kicking the shit out of them, but we batter them with our intensity and our ambition to win the ball back and give the opposition no time on the ball. Now that's great, but you saw it against Arsenal that when there's a better footballing team on the pitch and they get it right with their pressing, well, then we're just there kind of setting up a block. So how does that change? Because maybe this is a look forward to Eddie thinking that we're going to be in Europe next year, because we're going to have that situation in Europe. We're going to play as good, if not better, footballing sides than us. So how does that? This is where I'm intrigued about where our team goes in the next 12 months. It's the evolution of the team, because if we're still playing the exact same football as we are now in 12 months' time, I don't think that'll be necessarily a good thing. So I'll be intrigued to see how we add some more attacking dash and finishing touch to what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think we did speak about, it might have been before the Leicester game as well. Dan Ashworth had a pre-gamer with Sky Sports, and he was sort of kept his powder dry. I think he was really sort of watering down expectations for this January transfer window, and pretty much said if anything comes up that we like, we'll act. But if not, we're pretty much putting all our eggs in the summer basket and trust our players to sort of finish off the rest of the season as well.
Yeah.
Dimi, I don't think we might have just touched on it last week, but are you sort of the same thing? Just we're probably maybe a little bit of overachieving the first half of the season, but we're happy with what we've got.
I'm not sure you'd call it overachieving, because I think for the last 12 months we've been a top 4 team. If you look at our results, we've been a top 4 team. I think the last time Adam came on, probably 12 months ago, roughly, we were obviously fighting relegation, but the form from then basically till now has been fantastic, and we're obviously drawing a lot of games. We're not losing. We've lost 1 league game all season, so I'm a little bit not happy that we haven't just rushed and bought players. I'm glad that we've got a plan. I think we haven't had a plan for forever, it seems like, and we just buy on a whim, or Chef Kikuchi comes in last minute because we lose Andy Carroll, and who knows what else is around the corner with the old regime. But at least now you can see they're planning for 1 transfer window, 2, 3 transfer windows in advance. And I think, like Adam said, the wage bill is a huge consideration. I think Shelby would have been on massive wages. Chris Wood coming from Burnley, us getting him from Burnley, we would have had to give him top wages. And they're two big earners who are not playing. So I think it's been a smart move to get those guys off the books. And I think it's going to be important, obviously, for the rest of this season, for us to keep everyone fit and not suspended like Bruno did the other week. That would be ideal, but it's going to be how we evolve. And I think you just got to trust Eddie at this point, that whoever's he's going to bring in, even if they're a no name to us, or even if we've never seen them play in that position, like Joe Linton, no one ever saw him play centre midfield. All of a sudden, out of necessity against Norwich, he plays centre mid for an hour. Now he's one of the best midfielders in Premier League, if not in Europe. So who knows if we lose another midfielder, whether it's Longstaff or Willock or Big Joe, who's to say he puts a Harrison Ashby, or he throws a spanner in the works, puts an Anthony Gordon deeper, or he does something like that that we're not expecting, that he's already seen. So I'm sure they're not stupid. They're not going to just release players without any plan. So I think we just got to trust Eddie, and he's earned that trust, and let's see how we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at their record since they've come in, they haven't missed. I think every player they've brought in has been a hit, not a hit, but they've been the right player, both on the field and off the field, which is probably more important. You don't want someone, and I think he spoke about this publicly, you don't want someone coming in, upsetting the dressing room and things like that. Like, they've built a pretty good culture in the club at the moment. Everyone gets on. Even on the match cam, I was watching again the other day when after that Southampton game, and they're coming up the tunnel, and John Joe Shelby's in another room, and Callum Wilson sticks his head in. He's like, "Hello, Johnny. Hello, old boy," and then just grabs him and drags him into the change rooms as well. like this is a guy, he's just left. Like, he's not even at the club anymore, and they bring him in, make him feel a part of it. And I even read, like, Eddie Howe's been ringing Kieran Clark to see how he's going, how's the kids, and all that sort of stuff. So I think that speaks volumes of the type of culture and stuff like that they've created in just a little over 12 months as well. But yeah, Dimi, I will like to just expand on that point with our draws. Adam, is it a concern for you? Is it worrying sort of our post-World Cup form, or is it just a case of like the start of the year where we did draw a few games, our sort of metrics and our stats were still pretty good, we're just lacking that goal to sort of kill teams off?
Yeah, a little bit. It was eventually going to catch up. And look, we're drawing games that ordinarily, if you don't play at your top, you lose. So there is that. It's hard when you get to this bit. I play a lot of golf, and you sometimes finish 9 holes and you're 2 or 3 under your handicap, and you're feeling great about life. You're feeling fantastic. And at the moment, Newcastle are probably 4 under their handicap. I put us at 8th at the start of the season as par. So when you play golf, if you're 2 or 3 under your handicap and you get to the end of the round and you're even with your handicap, you go, "Oh, it's good. I would have taken it when I got the clubs out of the car this morning, but oh man, I've let a bit slip in the second half." And that's probably how it's going to feel if we slip in this second stage. But I mean, you've got to try and keep it bigger picture or medium-term picture, rather than just looking at the ins and outs each week, or looking too big picture and going, it doesn't really matter. It's somewhere in between, in my opinion. But yeah, if we stick to 4th or 5th, that's beyond my wildest expectations of this year. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I had it. What do you have, Jimmy? What do you think we'd finish at the start of the year?
Yeah, on our preview pod, I was like Adam. I said if we finish 8th and a decent cup run. I mean, decent cup run for me didn't mean make Wembley. That's a bonus. But it's obviously not in my wildest dreams that I think we're going to ever win 3 or 4 cup games. But yeah, decent cup run and finish 8th, then that would have been a par. I mean, no one would have expected this season Liverpool and Chelsea to be as poor as they've been, and Tottenham moving up and down. Obviously, Man United have picked up form and they're sort of hanging around us, which is a bit annoying. But there's spots there. The top 6 position, which I didn't feel was going to be available to us this season with our squad depth, is there. So it's like Adam said, we're way over our expectation. I think we just have to manage as hard as it's going to be. we have to manage what we expect of the team, because obviously we're not losing games. We're still picking up points. It's not all bad. Points are going on the board. So as long as we remember the fact that we're not losing and we're actually picking up points to our total, then I think that's very important to reiterate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, guys. Just quickly, I'll reiterate again. You guys mentioned it as well about what's got us here as well. Like when Klopp's interviewed and other managers are interviewed, the question is coming from the journo. It's not like they're bringing it up, but the question is coming, what do you make of Newcastle spending? And then they start going on about, states owning clubs and blah, blah, blah. We're only in this position. I wholeheartedly believe this. We've been helped in the transfer market, but it's right recruitment, but it's the coaching. It's the improvement in the players that are there. Now, if Eddie can somehow get a little bit more out of these players in the second half, which will be required to hold our position, again, it's like another wonderful advertisement for how good this guy is in teaching football, basically. So if that can continue, that's the main thing. But that is the overriding contributing factor about our rise this season. It's what he has done on that training pitch.
Yeah, and even just expanding on that, I mean, the players we bought weren't exclusive to us. Like anyone could have gone and brought Bruno, or anyone could have tried to get Sven Botman or brought Nick Pope for 10 million. Like it wasn't just a close shot for us, so we can pick what we like. And even the transfer thing annoys me as well, because for years and years beforehand, we were basically neglected in the transfer market, and the spending of other teams was nowhere near what we'd even spend. So, like for 2 windows, people, spend this and this. Yeah, but we had to, because we never spent anything else for the last 5 years. So, we ran a profit. That's how little we spent. Like it makes me not angry, but it just makes me laugh. But yeah, Eddie's coaching is the difference. And yeah, I 100% agree with that. You can look at your Bruno and your Sven Botman and stuff like that, but he still had Sean Longstaff, and he still had Joel Linton and these guys.
Miggy.
Yeah.
Fabian Scher, who wasn't getting the game, who was about to leave.
Yeah, he couldn't get a game, and now he's an absolute. We'd be in the conversation for most underrated player of the season, I reckon, in the Premier League, not just for us. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to this week's game. Anyway, it's against Bournemouth. It's at the Vitality Stadium for a 5:30 p.m. kickoff in the UK. It's the graveyard shift for us on Australian Eastern Daylight Time with a 4:30 a.m. kickoff. 3:30 for the Queenslanders, and anywhere else, I can't be bothered working it out. So check your local guides for details.
It's a put no spoilers on Optus at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Or if you've got a young kid who gets up, and you might catch the second half if you have to change a nappy. So Bournemouth are currently 19th on the table. They're 2 points ahead of Southampton, who are stone motherless last. They haven't had a win in their last 8 games, league and cup. At home this season, they've won 3, lost 4, drawn 3. Not in the best of form, as their table suggests. Dimi, how do you see this one going, mate?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, graveyard shift, yes, in terms of Australian time, but prime time Sky Sports game over there. Yeah. So it's going to be obviously a big build up in Bournemouth. Eddie Howe coming back to Bournemouth. I'm pretty sure his first game at their stadium. Obviously, there's been a couple of games. The league game at St James's where we drew, and then obviously the cup game where we won 1-0. So there's been a couple of return bouts already with Eddie against Bournemouth. But look, it's going to be interesting. I think the fact that we've drawn the last couple of games and not picked up points makes this game probably not more important, but sharpens the focus. I think the team will have a sharpened focus this week, and we'll go through what we expect the lineup to be in a sec. But I do think that we're going to come out with a different mentality this week. It had to be hard for the players to recover after that euphoric victory against Southampton 3 or 4 days before the West Ham game. And like we've said before, we haven't got the biggest squad, and we're virtually playing the same team minus 1 or 2 players every game. So it had to have been a big one side physical, yes, but also mental toll on the players. So you can probably forgive the players for petering out against West Ham last week, but I think this week with a 4 week of training, I think we're going to be razor sharp.
Yeah, the only concern I've got is probably we're going to be in our Saudi kit, which we haven't had much success in so far this season. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up Dimi's predicted 11, and that's it there. So he's unchanged from last week's game against West Ham. Now I'm going to get Adam to critique it. How do you see this? Would you do the same, or would you bow to seems to be Twitter pressure and maybe drop ASM and bring Anthony Gordon in for his first start?
I don't know if my opinion about what I would do really counts, but what I think Eddie's going to do is do exactly that and bring Gordon in to start. Maxi, I think he's so much more dynamic off the bench for 30 minutes, in my opinion, against tired legs. I'd much rather see him against a tired outfit than that, and he probably won't cop it, and I dare say that he won't be at the club next season because of it, which is fair enough. Life goes on, but I just think Gordon offers a bit more to start with, and let's test him.
Yeah, so he's one of the most divisive players we've had, definitely in the last 30 years. You're on him or you're off him. I don't think there's much middle ground. Now, I didn't think he was too bad last weekend, but the thing that killed him was Anthony Gordon doing what he did when he come on. And I think that sort of made him look a lot worse than probably what he actually was. And he sort of looks a little bit confused now, where is he defending too much and it's taking away his attacking instincts? And with a player like him, it's really hard to find the balance. I did see Isak's back in training this week, so I dare say he'll be back on the bench. Wilson's goal last week probably kept the Wolves at bay for people clamouring for Isak to take the starting spot over Callum Wilson, even though I still didn't think he played the best, but that goal definitely helps. So, yeah, you would go with Anthony Gordon, Adam?
Yeah.
Or do you think Eddie would?
I just think Maxi's suited to coming off the bench because it's a lot. It's double harder to play as a winger at the start of a game than it is with 30 to go. It's just pure fact. It's a bloody hard position to play against fresh players. So yeah, I'd do that.
Yeah. What about you, Dimi? Did you have a feeling to lean towards Gordon, or you think Eddie would just play with the same 11 again and give sort of the new guy another week of training?
Look, I think knowing Eddie, usually he doesn't bring in new players straight away. He sort of likes to bed them in slowly off the bench. But obviously Gordon's performance off the bench was telling. It was almost match winning. I mean, the through ball he put through for Wilson was sensational, and Callum Wilson probably dallied on the ball a little bit too long. And if you think about it, if we had Isak on the bench and that's a through ball to Isak, that's probably the winning goal, and Gordon's the hero, and then probably he's definitely starting this week. But I think Maxi hasn't started a game, I'm pretty sure, since either August or September. So it was his first start for a very long time. So it's been hard for him to get continuity, and obviously everyone knows his talent on the ball, and everyone remembers how he played against Manchester City earlier in the season, completely ripped apart Kyle Walker like he was a nobody. So he's got that in him, Maxi. But now that Adam's mentioned that super sub role, I'm hoping that Eddie sees the same thing, because it's not a role that should be diminished in football. That the super sub, I don't want to mention a Man United player, but Solskjaer role, or the super sub Garang Kuol role, like Kuol was doing for Mariners, but he wasn't starting.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. The Kuol role. Let's go with that.
The Kuol role, yeah. The Kuol role. He wasn't. People might not know from UK viewers, he wasn't starting basically any games for Central Coast Mariners. Most of the time he was coming off the bench and playing 25 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes a half, but no more than that. So, and that role's important. That role, if you come off the bench and change a game, that's an important role to have in the team. And I think our squad lacks depth and quality, but if you have the luxury with starting someone like Gordon, who's obviously a good player, but bringing on a Maxi with 25 minutes, he could get you a goal or set up a goal and be that match winner. There's nothing wrong. Obviously, in Maxi's eyes, he'll probably think differently, but from a club perspective, there's nothing wrong with keeping your powder dry with Maxi and having him have that super sub role. He might be the difference between us winning a couple more games or drawing a couple of games. If he's coming off the bench fresh, as defenses tire, he might be able to make a difference. So I think that's a good point by Adam, and I reckon I'm hoping Eddie sees the same. I think Gordon off the bench was good, but Maxi off the bench could be dynamic.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys follow basketball, but when Andre Iguodala was asked to come off the bench for the Warriors when Steve Kerr sort of took over, and he embraced that role and he really took it. Now, I'm not sure if Allen's quite as team orientated as what Andre is, but if he could embrace that role, I mean, he could stay here for a few more years yet and play that half an hour super sub. I don't think his tanks, probably like you said, Adam, I don't think his tanks where it needs to be for a wing act, because it is a hard position and he plays on turbo. He doesn't really have a cruise control. Everything he does is at speed. So he sort of burns his tickets pretty quick.
And when you've had an injury interrupted season and you haven't got any continuity, you just don't have the miles in your legs that the other players do. And it becomes automatic that their second wind kicks in after 10 minutes and then they can just go and go and go. So Maxi doesn't have that. You can see it. He just doesn't have that pace, unfortunately. So, hopefully he can fight it in the second half of the season, because we've got the season's literally just over halfway done. It feels like we've been going because of the World Cup break, it feels like we've been going for a year, but there's a long, long way to go.
Yeah, and I think especially with only bringing Gordon in during the transfer window, I don't think these players can keep playing with the intensity that they play at for the rest of the season. I think rotation is going to be important, and not so much like that FA Cup game where a whole 11, but every now and then, like a player drops out, he might just come off the bench for a 20-minute role, and he sort of gets a bit of a spell that way as well. So he could be a really important player for the rest of the season. But I'll do what you said, Dimi, about how Eddie doesn't like to bring guys in. I think he likes bringing in English players who know the league. I think he feels comfortable with like a Trippier, and I think Matty Target played pretty much straight away as well when he came in. So it was only like a Bruno. I think Botman might have started the first game on the bench, but come in as well. Yeah, so like that was more of a forced move, because I think Target might have got injured, and then Dan Burn went out to left back, which opened up that centre back role as well. So I think he does. I think he doesn't mind starting the English guys, because like Gordon knows the league, he knows the players, he's well accustomed to everything. So I don't think he'd have any hesitation starting him if he thought he was ready. All right, we'll get on to the predictions now. Demi, do you want to fire your prediction out? Your match prediction, not a Nostradimi prediction or anything like that.
Well, you're going to be known as Keegan Dimi now, because you're on a hot streak. So I've
retired.
Well, you've retired, have you? Okay, you're going to retire on top. I think you've got 4 in a row. So that's
four correct scores in a row, Adam, if you're keeping track at home.
Really?
Yeah, so if you've he has.
So.
Shit.
So if
have you monetized that, or?
Yeah, sports better ban me, so I can't get on.
Owner account, misses.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think. Look, I think we're going to get the chocolates. I think you got to trust a full week of training is going to be very important for the boys to get some rest and get some training into the legs. I think it's great to see Isaac's back. I think he's going to be a vital part of the second half of the season. I think I hate the saying when they say, an injured player comes back and it's like a new signing, but for Isaac, it basically is, because he's only played about 2 or 3 games. So
and scored in most of them too.
Yeah, exactly right. And you can just tell he's absolute quality. So having him off the bench or for half an hour, 25 minutes is going to be crucial. I think we're going to win. Let's go 2-0.
Beautiful. Adam?
I'm just looking at Bournemouth's record right now, just to remind myself. I knew they had the worst defence in the league, but I mean, at either end, scoring goals has been their issue. Now, we're obviously pretty good at not conceding, as we well know, but they've scored 1 goal, I'm thinking, and in the league since they beat Everton 3-0 on the 13th of November. So that before the last game before the World Cup break. So,
and that shouldn't count because Lampard was still in charge. So
Was Anthony Gordon playing that day, by the way? Let me have a look.
He probably would have been.
No, he wasn't. Oh, he came
Oh.
off the bench. Yeah. He came off the bench and played 16 minutes. So, yeah. Look, I can't see them scoring too many against us, and I can't see them holding us out if we have an on day. Now, obviously, a lot depends on how we compensate for no Bruno, the combinations in the middle of the field. And Bruno is so important, watching them live twice, is that he is the link. He basically plays three positions. He plays number 6, defensive midfielder. He plays the box-to-box when he wants to, and Longstaff can tuck in, or he can go as high as a number 10 and be the link between the last pass between he and one of the front three. So it's an incredible role he plays, and you can't replace that. The three that they've got there, like as much as they try, they're different profile. But Bruno is the one that we open up so much space in that channel between a centre-back and a fullback. And that's where a lot of our goals get created, with Miggy's runs in behind, or Willock doing the same, or if it's Joel Linton out there. But that's a massive miss. Now, if we can plug that or change the way we play a little bit, which I wouldn't mind either, Bournemouth are in for a tough afternoon, I think.
You got a score?
3-1. I think they will score.
Right.
After saying all that, I think they will. Look, they're under the pump. So you've got to respect an opponent that's totally under the pump in front of their home fans with a big team coming to visit. They'll lift themselves. So we've got to expect that. We've got to walk into that. And it's a tricky place to go because it's the smallest ground in the Premier League, but there's a good atmosphere, good ambience there. So, look, I think they'll lift. But if we stick to what we've been doing for the entirety of the 90 minutes, we should get the job done.
Yeah. I'm predicting a win. I'm just not going to give a score because, like I said, I've 4 in a row, and the last thing I want to do is ruin my track record as a famous talkback caller once copped. Toby from Newport. Google, YouTube Toby from Newport if you haven't heard it. It's an absolute cracker. That just about wraps us up for tonight. Adam, thanks very much for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure talking all things Newcastle with you. If you've made it this far and you live in Australia, I'm not sure if overseas people have access to Code Sports, but subscribe to Code Sports. Follow all of Adam's work on there, which is fantastic. I have subscribed, and I can subscribe to. They are really good pieces to read. Dimi, thank you very much for joining us, mate, for another preview. Good luck to your Philadelphia Eagles on Super Bowl Monday here in Australia. Hopefully the big former Saint Aaron Sipos can get himself a ring. I can't remember the other old mate's name. It's too hard to pronounce.
Jordan
there you go. I hope he can.
He's a rugby league. He's an ex-rugby league player.
Front rower.
I don't think he was a front rower. I'm pretty sure he was either. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was either a centre or.
He was told he was too big for rugby league.
Yeah, he's 6. He's 6. I think he's 6 or 6'7", but weighs about 340 pounds. And he plays a very important position in NFL. So he's got a big role to play on Monday, and hopefully we get the job done. But before we go, Keegs, I do have it off work.
No,
but
man.
of course, I can't work while watch it. But before we let Adam go, it'll be remiss of us to not ask him what's his feelings about the final coming up in. Like we said, in about 18, 19 days.
It's great call.
It's a massive moment. I don't want to build it up too much, but it's a massive. I've already taken a day off work. I'll put it out there now. It's a massive moment for us as a club, as a fan base. We haven't experienced anything like this before. Me being 30 years old now, the only final I remember, and it was vague memory, was the one in the late 90s against Man United, and obviously they were a top team then, and we weren't that much chop against them. So what are your feelings about the game, Adam? And do you subscribe to the general feeling amongst Newcastle fans that we're a genuine, if not 50-50 chance, but genuine chance to actually win?
Yeah, it'd be a great game. Like that, I remember those two finals. I'm a bit older than you. I'm 44, so I remember them clearly. My dad was actually at the Arsenal one where he just walked away and he was just disgusted because we didn't attack. We just tried to soak up, and Arsenal were red hot that season under Arsene Wenger and all these imports, and the Manchester United one as well. It was hard going. It was running uphill all day basically. But this one's a 50-50. bit annoyed that Manchester United have a catch-up game in the league and Casemiro is allowed to play, but
Yeah, I know.
that's the way it goes. It's going to be a great occasion. Like, two evenly matched sides. Oddly enough, before this morning's game, as we sit here and record this, I pinned Manchester United as getting on a bit of a roll, and given all the issues that are happening at like Arsenal and Manchester City, Arsenal trying to get across the line, and Manchester City got a few other things on their plate as well as football. But I can see Manchester United making a bit of a run. I'm not saying that they're going to win the title, but they're going to make it very, very interesting the way that they're improving through the year. So this final is going to be epic. It has the makings of a superb final. It's not just one team getting there and being satisfied with it. That, even though we've waited so long, that's not the feeling that I have about this game, and I dare say that that's replicated with Eddie Howe's thoughts. So can't wait. Haven't worked out exactly what I'm going to do because my son's 17 and it's on obviously a ridiculous hour on Sunday night.
3:30 in the morning Monday, yeah.
3:30 in the morning Monday. He probably has to work the next day. He's 6'3". I could get him into a pub, but he need fake ID. I don't know if I go down that road or if we just watch it at home downstairs and make a shitload of noise at 4 o'clock in the morning watching it. Either way, we'll be watching somehow. We'll be watching together. And, I can't wait to see it all unfold.
Yeah. So I was in year 8 and year 9 for the last two, and I used to stay at Grandma's house and we'd watch them together. Grandma come from Ashington, so I used to go around there and watch the two finals with her. So, it's going to be interesting, and like you said, it is a genuine 50-50, and it's going to be exciting just to watch us try and win the game. And even like this is going to sound a bit 2023ish, but I'm actually really looking forward to the build up on social media as well. We get to see all the videos around Wembley and around London, sort of the morning of the game, maybe even the day before the game as well. And it's going to be crazy just to see sort of experience it. Still on the other side of the world, but get a bit of an insight.
Is going to get written off.
Good luck.
It'd be lucky to be still that monument in Trafalgar Square.
It's going to be a bad day to be a beer in Trafalgar Square on League Cup final day. So we can't look forward to that. Stay tuned. We're going to have plenty of content coming up in the next 3 weeks leading up to the League Cup as well. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for all that. Adam, once again, thanks for your time, mate. Really, really appreciate you jumping on. Very lucky that we have someone like you in our country that supports Newcastle, and we have access to talk about all things Newcastle with as well. Dimi, thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Thanks very much, guys. We'll catch you later on.
See you,
cheers, mate.